Hello and welcome to this session. This session is aimed at those looking to make an application to the community's mental health and wellbeing fund for adults. This session will cover the background to the fund priorities, eligibility, application, and then it will finish with some tips for making your application. So just to remind you that the Community's Mental Health and Wellbeing Fund for Adults was established in October 2021 and to date has distributed around £66 million to community initiatives supporting mental health and wellbeing across Scotland. Funding for a fifth and sixth year worth £50 million each year across Scotland was announced in April 2025 with guidance released by Scottish Government shortly after. The fund has a strong focus on prevention and early intervention and aims to support grassroots community groups in tackling mental health inequalities and addresses priority issues of social isolation and loneliness, suicide prevention, and tackling poverty and inequality. The fund is being administered nationally by third sector interfaces, and in Dumfries and Galloway, the fund will be distributed by third sector Dumfries and Galloway to community groups and organisations. The total fund available in Dumfries and Galloway for 25-26 is £439,150.64, and we are expecting a similar amount for 26-27. We're delighted to report that this fund has been chosen by Scottish Government to be part of the Fairer Funding pilot, meaning projects can be funded for up to 2 years. So just to remind you that the aim of the fund is to support community-based initiatives that promote and develop good mental health and wellbeing and/or mitigate against the impact of distress and mental ill health within the adult population, that's those aged 16 and over, with a particular focus on early intervention. So specifically, this fund aims to tackle mental health inequalities through supporting a range of at-risk groups and address priority issues of social isolation and loneliness, suicide prevention, and poverty inequality. It's to support small grassroots community groups and organisations to deliver such activities, and it's to provide opportunities for people to connect with each other, build trusted relationships, and revitalise communities. The fund directly contributes to outcome 4 of the mental health and wellbeing strategy published in June 23. And it supports those 3 key areas of focus in the strategy around promotion, prevention, and providing that support. The fund also seeks to contribute to the following national outcomes for the National Performance Framework. And that's about being healthy and active, living in communities that are inclusive, empowered, resilient and safe, and tackling poverty by sharing opportunities, wealth and power more equally. Specifically, the intended outcomes of the fund remain the same as in years 1 to 4, and are to develop that culture of mental wellbeing and prevention within local communities, to foster a strategic and preventative approach to improving community mental health, and to support the resilience of communities. Tackling those social determinants of mental health by targeting those resources and collaborating with other initiatives to tackle poverty and inequality. So the priorities for the fund across Dumfries and Galloway are based on that existing strategic context at national and at regional levels. And so the fund priorities are social isolation and loneliness, suicide prevention, poverty and equality, and each application will be required to show how it contributes to at least one of those fund priorities. So the fund is to support initiatives which promote mental health and wellbeing at small scale, grassroots, community level to those aged 16 and over. Now, the organisations do not have to have mental health and wellbeing as the main focus, but their application does have to clearly benefit the mental wellbeing of people within the community. So this is the legal status of organisations eligible to apply. Funding can only be applied for if the applicant organisation has an annual income of no more than £1 million. If an applicant organisation is part of a national, this amount would refer to the income specifically for Dumfries and Galloway. There is a requirement for all grant recipients awarded a public sector contract to pay at least the real living wage. You will be asked if your project is supporting any of the at-risk groups that are listed here. And although it's not a requirement for eligibility, each application will be asked to show which at-risk groups will benefit from the project. Applications will still be considered for beneficiaries who are not included in the above list, but you will be asked to confirm if your project is open to all, so that's general, if it's been targeted at a specific risk group, or if it's restricted, so it's only open to one of those risk groups. And you have to be able to demonstrate how your project is accessible to those groups and any barriers to engage have been identified and furthermore removed. So when we look to the eligible expenditure, here is a list of things that are eligible. It's not exhaustive, but it does give you an idea. And the ineligible, there's nothing new on here that you wouldn't expect to see. So please make sure you don't include any contingency costs. We do see that a lot, so please don't include that. And so when we look at the type of projects that we're looking to support, it's to remind everybody that the ambition of this fund is to support initiatives which promote mental health and wellbeing at a small scale, grassroots community level and must be accessible. National organisations undertaking initiatives in Dumfries and Galloway are not excluded, but are not the main focus of the fund. And funding organisations don't need to have mental health and wellbeing as the sole focus, but as this is the purpose of this fund, the applications do need to clearly outline how it benefits mental health and wellbeing of people in their community. So the purpose of this fund is not primarily directed towards providing clinical interventions, but if any proposals do involve potential for clinically trained staff delivering therapeutic intervention, there should be clear arrangements in place for clinical supervision and governance. This fund will only support projects whose beneficiaries live in Dumfries and Galloway. So I just want to take some time now to talk to you about the financial implications for this 2-year a fairer funding pilot, which does mean that you can apply for up to 2 years worth of your costs. So we have had an instruction from Scottish Government, and that says that the majority of the fund should go to smaller projects, so those with a value up to £10,000, which would leave the 40% to go to projects of £10,001 to £35,000. And that overall 70% of our total allocation should go to fund 2-year projects, with the remaining 30% of the fund to go to 1-year projects. Now, we have already shared with you that in this year, the amount available is £439,150.64, and we are expecting a similar amount in year 6. We have just taken that at the amount of 430 to be able to provide the 2-year allocation. So rather than just fund a couple of applications out of the year 5 allocation, we've taken the decision at steering group level to combine the year 5 confirmed and year 6 anticipated monies together to get the most value out of providing the 2-year funded projects. So what that means is that we have said that there's £869,150.64. 60% of that total amount, £521,490.38, will go into the small grants. And the remaining 40%, which equals £347,666.26, will go into the main grants. So this next slide tells you how we've taken that to be able to provide some amounts that we are going to be using to allocate funding. So in the small grants of the total amount that I've already shared with you, we have said that 70% will go to the 2-year projects, with the remaining 30% on 1-year projects in year 5 and 1-year projects in year 6. So it's important to note that in year 6 there won't be any 2-year projects. It will just be 1-year projects. So for the 2 years, we're looking to allocate £365,043.27. and £156,447.12 on those 1 year projects. We've then split the 1 year projects into the year 5 and year 6. And so that tells you that we will have £78,223.56 to allocate to the 1 year projects in the small grants. For the main grants, they when we put the 70% to that total allocation, that means that we've got £243,362,362.18. The remaining 30%, which will go to the 1 year projects, is £104,298.08. Again, here's the breakdown for year 5 and year 6 for the 1 year projects, £52,149.04. It's important to tell you at this point that whilst year 6 has been confirmed, we have not yet received offers, and that will happen next year. So it is not signed, sealed, and delivered, but it is expected. So the fund will support new and existing projects. Applications should state when the funding activity is due to start, and this should be no earlier than the 1st of April 2026. Projects can be funded either for a maximum of 24-month period, with all work completed by the 31st of March 2027 for 1 year projects, or the 31st of March 2028 for 2 year projects. Fund open for applications on the 15th of September, with a closing date of the 24th of October at 12 noon. The scoring panel will meet in November to assess applications, and applicants can be expected to be notified of the outcome of their application by the end of January. So just to take you through the application form, so our application process is online, and the links are there on the TSDG website page. Section 1 is contact details, so provide us with the contact details for the person who we need to communicate with and who is making the application. We also ask for a secondary contact. Please make sure the secondary contact is aware that their name has been used and that you are available, one of you, during the period immediately after your application is submitted, in case we do need to be in touch. Section 2 is about the organisation details, when you're established, how many staff you've got, how many volunteers are involved, and just give us a brief description outlining your main activities, the services you provide, and to whom. And then as we reach the financial details, we're interested in your income for the last financial year, the contact details for your independent examiner, and your bank account details. If your bank account details does not match your organisation name, we may deem you ineligible. We have provided a little text box for you to explain why these names don't match, and we will assess these cases on an individual basis. So the next bit is about projects, and this is where you're going to tell us the project name, start and end date. So remember those eligible dates noted here. Postcode for the project, the number of beneficiaries, and how have you calculated this figure? Tell us which groups your beneficiaries identify as and who can benefit from the project. You need to tell us if this is a new project, new to this fund, or an existing funded project. And then use these choices given, pick one word which best describes your project. So here it's things like befriending, group activity, social, it's those types of things. So it does give you a drop-down list, and you do have to pick one. It may do multiple, but pick the one that best describes your project. And we also want to know how many volunteers are involved in the delivery. And you do need to tell us if your project is targeting the Scottish Government's cost of living priority groups, and they're all listed for you as well. So this is the bit where you need to pay particular attention, because we're into the scoring sections now. So tell us about your project and the activities you'd like to deliver. Please note that this is a double question. So tell us about the project and the activities. And then tell us how you know that the project is needed. Explain to us the difference the project's going to make to its beneficiaries. And then identify which of the fund program priorities your project will address, whether that's social isolation and loneliness, suicide prevention, poverty and equality. You can choose 1, 2, 3 of these priorities. What I will say to you is, and remind you, is that this is an accumulative score. So you won't get points for each. It's an accumulative score based on a consideration of your answers. So you will not score more points for choosing more priorities. And if you choose priorities that your project doesn't deliver on, it will actually bring your score down overall. Choose your priority wisely and give us a great answer. Then you need to tell us how you're going to measure your project's impact. And then we move on to the budget, and this should be a robust budget which backs up the activities that you've told us you're going to deliver. So you need to tell us the total cost of your project and how much funding you're applying for. If this is not 100%, you'll need to tell us where the rest of your funding is coming from and whether or not it's been secured. You need to break your budget down for us, and this figure must be the same as the amount you're requesting from the fund. If you're applying for any capital items, this is small capital items, you're required to tell us about your exit strategy. And then finally, you need to confirm that so that you have got the appropriate policies in place, you've got safeguarding if you need it, you've got an EDI policy, and that you will adhere to the Fair Work Framework. You need to tell us if you're going to buy anything more than £3,000, you're going to get a couple of quotes for it. You need to include your bank statement, and you need to upload a copy of your constitution or your governing document. Then you declare that the information contained in this application is correct, that the constitution submitted with your application is the most up-to-date version adopted by members of the organisation. You need to confirm to us that you are authorised to make the application on behalf of the above organisation and with whom it has been discussed. And if you're submitting a partnership bid, other partners are aware of the application being submitted and have agreed to work in partnership with you. We may come back to you for some more information about that. And you have to accept that the decisions made by the scoring panel are final. Then finally, you sign the application form and submit. Page then comes up asking you to review it. If you scroll down to the bottom, you can print your application form at this point, but you do have to press submit. Your application is not submitted until you receive the message that says, "Thank you, your application has now been submitted." So what I want to do now is just to share some hints and tips with you and some things for you to think about to consider whether or not you should make an application to this fund and to try and help you prepare before you make your application. So we need you to consider how this opportunity fits with your overall vision, purpose, mission, and/or your strategic plan. Are you eligible? So the things that we've talked about already, looking at the eligibility, do you hit that eligibility? And does the delivery of this project fit with your current skill set and offer? When you're describing your activities, remember the 5 W's. So the who, what, where, when, and why. So tell us who the activity's for, what they are, where they're being delivered, when they're being delivered, and why they're being delivered in that way. How much you write isn't related to how much money you're seeking, and we do have limits on our sections, so be really clear and concise with your answers. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, so don't be tempted to cut and paste from other applications. Take time to review to ensure you're hitting eligibility and answering the question, which then brings us on to there's no such thing as a perfect answer, so answer everything honestly. We've got 4 golden rules, and whenever I'm helping people apply for funding, these are the 4 rules that I suggest you follow. So the first one is about answering the question. And so make sure you answer the question they're asking, not with the answers you want to give or what you think we want you to say, but actually answer the question. Answer all aspects of the question asked. So remember, we say, tell us about the project and the activities. So always look out for dual aspect questions and use the guidance provided and cross-check it at the end. Golden rule number 2 is to make it an easy read. Our scoring panel have 130 plus applications to assess. So make it an easy read. Make sure you plan your approach. Start with a clear summary and expand into the word count. That's much easier to do than be over the word count and trying to cut it down, because you can lose the essence of what you're trying to say. Minimize that repetition and make sure each answer stands out alone, and don't cross-reference. And don't exceed your word limits. Our system will actually stop you if you go over. Golden rule number three is about being clear and concise. So it's use of appropriate and correct language. Don't use internal jargon and abbreviations. Don't waffle on, be specific. Avoid generalizations of assumption of knowledge so it's widely known. You need to really spell out exactly what you're saying. Check your spelling and your grammar and then check it again, and then get a friend to check it. Our system does allow you to return to application, so you can save your progress and return. You can do that just before you submit, just to give somebody a chance to have eyes on it. And then finally, golden rule number 4 is about consistency and completeness. So use context to demonstrate wider relevance. So highlight the skills of your staff, your expertise, your track record. Use relevant data or documents which support your case carefully. Ensure consistency in your language and style, and walk away and come back another time and make sure that you allow time for this. And just some words on your budget. Make sure your budget is robust and it backs up your activity. Have a strong, comprehensive budget in place with clear allocations using full cost recovery model. Bring in your finance staff at the start of the application, not the end. And show that it is value for money. Value for money is one of the scoreable questions. So we do assess what you're asking for against the activities you're going to deliver to decide whether or not that's value for money for the fund. And then just a final check back with you. It's around clarity and completeness. So plain English, answer all your questions, make sure you've got a budget which backs up your activities, and all your attachments are ready to go. We won't pay for anything retrospective, so think about your timing. The start dates are in April. There's enough time now for you to, at the point, should you be lucky enough to receive a grant, to plan so that come 1st of April, staff are in place, everything's ready to go. So nothing retrospective. That the timescales for this application process and the delivery of the project allow enough time for you to respond, and make sure you meet the deadline. Come 12 noon on the 24th of October, the system just turns off. It's that simple, and no applications will be accepted after that date. So just to remind you that the fund opens on the 15th of September 2025. The deadline for completed applications is the 24th of October, 12 noon. The system will automatically go off. So make sure your application is in good time. We will then carry out eligibility checks and be back in touch with you should anything have been missed or we need some further information. The scoring panel will convene towards the end of November, and just due to the holidays, decisions will be expected in early January, with payments made shortly after that and hopefully before the end of January 2026. The guidance and online application form is available by visiting our website. And should you need anything from us, would be of any assistance, then please do reach out to us by email. The address is wellbeingfund@tsdg.org.uk. That just leaves me to wish you the very best of luck with your application, and looking forward to reading all about your project.